Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolute masterclass on eliminating sourcing friction. We're looking at a real-world case study where heavy industry meets predictive AI to completely transform procurement from the ground up. The source material outlines how Trinity Rail Industries teamed up with Arkestro to do exactly this. And we're not talking theory here. We're talking about getting complex supply chain projects live in a matter of days. Okay, let's dive into this. The big question we really need to answer today is this. How does a heavy industry manufacturer actually overcome the massive administrative drag in global procurement? It's a huge hurdle right now. Companies are staring down a serious structural labor deficit, and there's a very real risk of losing years of unwritten tradecraft as experienced workers retire. How in the world do you replace that kind of deeply ingrained knowledge? First up, the context and core challenge, dealing with the friction in global heavy industry sourcing. To really grasp the gravity of this, we need to look at Trinity Rail Industries' operational reality. According to our sources, this major shift was overseen by their chief supply chain officer, Michael Shin. You know, in heavy manufacturing, the baseline conditions for procurement are incredibly complex. You're dealing with massive global supply bases and a process that historically requires a ton of manual, repetitive work just to keep the lights on. Because administrative drag is literally the enemy here. Think about it. Sourcing teams get totally bogged down cleaning up fragmented data, managing endless email chains, and manually evaluating quote after quote. The publications highlight that these teams were spending an outsized share of their day on these exact manual tasks. That is precious time getting stolen right away from the strategic stuff, like real dialogue, relationship building, and complex negotiations. And honestly, it gets even more complicated, building into a much larger crisis for the industry. It's not just about wasted time. We're talking about a structural labor deficit. As veteran buyers retire, they take decades of unwritten tradecraft and tribal knowledge right out the door with them. In manufacturing, that represents a severe strategic risk. I mean, if that institutional knowledge completely vanishes, how does a company maintain any sort of supply chain resilience? Which brings us to the predictive sourcing solution, moving from reactive to autonomous, data-backed offers. This is where the technological intervention actually happens. To tackle both that administrative drag and the loss of tribal knowledge, Trinity Rail partnered up with Arkestro. They brought in advanced AI architectures, specifically focusing on predictive procurement and a truly fascinating concept known as digital twinning. Now, what's really interesting about digital twinning is that we aren't just talking about automating a couple of spreadsheets. In this context, digital twinning means literally encoding the unwritten tradecraft and logic of those veteran buyers and plant managers into scalable, AI-driven best practices. It's essentially capturing human expertise, the gut feelings, the hard-earned market intuition, the unwritten rules of negotiation, and institutionalizing all of it so the entire organization can run with it autonomously. Think about the old posture. It was entirely reactive. Sourcing teams were stuck in this endless loop of manual quoting, basically just waiting around for suppliers to email them back. The new posture, though, is totally proactive. By using predictive AI to simultaneously analyze thousands of parts, market factors, and supplier conditions, the system automatically generates data-backed offers. You aren't waiting anymore, you're approaching the market with the optimal offer already in hand. So here's exactly how that AI optimization plays out in practice. First, it analyzes market factors and conditions at a massive scale. Second, and this is a huge one, it surfaces incumbent alternative suppliers. It actually finds suppliers already sitting within the company's existing portfolio who can act as substitutes for parts everyone thought were single-sourced. And third, it identifies hidden capacity. This boosts supply chain resilience dramatically, and it does it without the headache and operational risk of expanding the supply base to completely unvetted vendors. Okay, theory is great, but let's talk about the quantitative operational results and accelerating the sourcing cycle. We're going to look at the hard numbers reported from this shift, really zeroing in on the direct impact this predictive AI had on deployment speed for Trinity Rail. 5. That is the magic number here. 5 days to get projects live with suppliers. When you completely strip away the manual data gathering and that painfully slow quote analysis, you drastically compress your cycle times, moving from a reactive, email-heavy slog to a predictive, AI-driven engine turned a process that traditionally takes weeks or even months into something that is up, running, and live in less than a week. To ground that 5-day claim in operational reality, the source material gives us this great quote from Edmund Zagorn, the founder and chief strategy officer of Arkestro. He states, "In 5 days, you can get projects live with suppliers and begin moving spend and demand from a reactive manual posture to something that's running continuously and predictively." And honestly, that continuous predictive motion, it's pretty much the holy grail of modern industrial procurement. So, stepping back for some professional logistics commentary on reallocating human talent and building resilience, it becomes very clear why this specific case is such a massive breakthrough for the industry. Because it's really not just about the software itself. It's about what that software unlocks for the actual human beings running the supply chain day in and day out. So the crucial point here is that frictionless sourcing unlocks human talent. The goal of this predictive AI isn't to just replace your veteran buyers. It's to wipe out the administrative drag so you can reallocate their time. When your people aren't cleaning data and chasing down emails all day, they can actually focus their cognitive energy on high-value judgment, complex negotiations, and building genuine strategic partnerships with suppliers. It's basically human-machine collaboration at its absolute finest. Finally, let's wrap up with the key practical takeaways and lessons from the Trinity Rail case. If you're a supply chain executive, a logistics student, or a practitioner watching this explainer, how do you actually apply this to your own operations? Let's distill the Trinity Rail and Arkestro experience down into a few generalized, really actionable conclusions. All right, here are the three main takeaways. First, you've got to aggressively eliminate manual data gathering if you want to accelerate your cycle times. Administrative drag is the absolute enemy of speed. Second, combat your structural labor deficits by institutionalizing expert logic through digital twins. You need to capture that tribal knowledge before your veterans retire. And third, shift your entire organizational posture from reactive quoting to making proactive, data-backed offers. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to challenge how you look at your current operations. If your veteran buyers retired tomorrow, would their sourcing logic leave with them? If your answer is yes, well, your supply chain might be a lot more fragile than you think, and it's probably time to start exploring predictive AI solutions. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this case study helps you build a faster, smarter supply chain.